Hey guys, another video for our healthcare in Japan playlist. Just a couple of comments and a couple of observations that might be useful to people who are coming to spend some time in Japan. The first one is, as far as the cost of healthcare, we've been asked this lots of times. It really depends on what company you're working for in Japan. It depends on your income. It depends on a lot of things. Sometimes the company that you work for will pay like a private healthcare, private health insurance for you, and you don't have to pay anything. Sometimes they'll pay a percentage. The correct thing to do in Japan is to register with the national health system. A lot of foreigners will avoid doing that because once they do that, then you're obliged to pay every month, and that can be a couple of $100 a month, or it could be $400 a month if you're earning a lot of money. It's scaled, it's connected to how much money you're earning. So the correct thing to do is to register with the National Health Service in Japan, but once you've done that, you'll be paying every month. So different people have different attitudes about that, but it really depends. It's going to depend on how long you're here for. If you're only here for a year, it's a little bit different. How long you're going to be here for, who you're going to be working for, how much money you're going to be earning. And usually if you come here to work for some company, which most people do because that's how they've got their visa, then people will, or the companies will usually give you advice on these things and tell you what they've got in place. So the National Health Service itself is excellent. It costs, the average person probably pays between $100 and $400 a month, depending on what your income is. And for that, 70-80% of almost all healthcare costs are covered. So even things, even dental and things like that as well, and even specialists and things like that as well. So it is pretty amazing. The video that is coming shortly that triggered this video was actually a visit to one of the best hospitals in Japan, and that involved seeing a specialist in there, and that consultation with that specialist is actually a professor and a specialist in his field. The total cost for that visit was $9 because the healthcare picked it up and we just have to pay the difference, which was $9. So, you know, it's very, very good. The main reason for this video though was more of a heads up about the experience itself, because it can be difficult. One thing that is very different in Japan compared with some other countries is the relationship between the patient and the doctor, and the bedside manner of the doctors and the professionals here. It is different. It's not as, in some countries you can have a really sort of a close rapport with your healthcare people, and it tends to not be like that so much here, partly because of just the Japanese culture and the way of people relate to each other here. It tends to be not quite so close, it tends to be a bit more distant. But also the way the system itself actually treats you as well, which can be a little bit stressful or irritating to some foreigners, because usually if you're going for healthcare, of course, you've got some stress already because you've got some sort of problem you have to deal with. And then what can happen is you can feel it can feel a bit impersonal, a bit like a production line. It's a little bit similar to the Toyota car manufacturing production line, where you go in and you register at a desk, or you feed your card into a machine and it gives you a piece of paper and sends you to somewhere else, and you sit down and then the number goes doing on a screen and you go into a room and they do something to you and send you to the next room, and it can feel very sort of automated and very sort of cold and clinical and impersonal, and occasionally you'll get something you didn't expect. For example, that professor that triggered this video, one of the things that triggered this video was the fact that he's actually a skin specialist. He was checking for skin cancers, and he actually said, I sat down and there was 6 people in the room. There was another doctor at an adjoining desk, and there was 2 nurses with each doctor, and there was another couple of people in a corner. There was 6 people in quite a small examination room, and he just said, take your clothes off please. And I think most countries, or a lot of countries, they'd be saying, you know, come behind this screen, take your clothes off, and they'd give you a little bit more privacy. Or in this case, it was a university hospital, so there was some medical students there, So in some countries they'd say to you, look, these guys are medical students, do you mind if they observe? But there was none of that. It was just, take clothes off please. And it was a moment of like, where? Where? Oh, you mean right here, okay. So it was like, take your clothes off with 6 people standing there. And there can be things like that here that people from other countries might not be used to. Another one is the pain management thing. It's still considered, in Japan, it's still considered that if you go to the doctor or the dentist, that pain might be involved and you just have to accept that. Whereas in a lot of countries now, of course, the healthcare professionals pride themselves on doing procedures without giving you any pain at all. So it's a little bit different for some people to come here and be expected to take a bit of pain. And they do often expect you to take a bit of pain without complaint. Which, of course, you know, in some procedures that's unavoidable, isn't it? But sometimes there are situations here where you might have to take pain where in another country you might not have to. So there's some things like that that can be a little bit disconcerting, particularly that production line thing that can leave you feeling a bit sort of, it sort of can add to the stress for you a little bit if you're not used to it. So the purpose of this video was just sort of basically a bit of a heads up that the best thing you can do is to go with it, because the system here does work. It really is really, really good. And you'll see on our healthcare playlist, we've got video on there from dentists, doctors, hospitals, operations, broken bones. We've gone to a lot of pain to cover all the topics for you. And if you look at those videos, the end result is almost always positive. If in fact always positive. It really is an amazing system. The quality of the healthcare is really, really good. The skill of the people involved is really, really good. The technology is really, really good. The speed that you get looked after here, like how efficient they are. You know, those of you who saw the video about the broken foot, walked in on a Saturday lunchtime, walked into the emergency area of the hospital, and was back in the car 2 hours later, having seen a doctor, then a bone specialist, and had x-rays, and then had the foot set in plaster, and had and all the paperwork done and everything done. 2 hours after walking in, was sitting in the car on the way home with it all done. And that's not an unusual experience here. The specialist hospital you'll see on that video that's going to be released soon, that specialist hospital was 1 hour. To go in, register for the first time, never been there before, register for the first time, fill out the paperwork, sit in the waiting room, be sent off to another waiting room, be taken in and examined and sent back down to pay the bill, and then sent out the door. And again, it's that factory style system where it's boom, okay, go over there, sit down there, go over there, sit down there. And Japanese people are really good at that. Japanese people will just follow those systems, and you watch the people around you, and nobody sort of fights it. Everybody just goes, right, go over, sit there, okay, go over here, stand there, sit here, stand there, do this, take that, take your clothes off. And everybody does it, and the end result is extremely efficient. Whereas in some countries you might wait 5 hours in a hospital just to see a doctor. You know, here there's a good chance that 1 hour later you're going to be back in your car, or 2 hours later you'll be out the door, you know. So the point of this video is just to sort of say that if you come here for some reason, you have to have some healthcare happening. Now, on our English Friendly directory, we try to collect English friendly healthcare professionals for you. It is a bit difficult, so you might have to, that's the other thing you're going to probably have a bit of a difficulty with, is the language thing. So you'll either need to have a good Japanese skill yourself, or have someone to help you by translating for you. And just try to go with it. If you find that you're struggling a bit, that you feel that the bedside manner is not as good as you think it should be, or as you're used to, just try and go with it. And the best thing you can do is just to not fight it, and not try and fight it. You can, now this is worth knowing too, is that you can say what you think. And if, for example, with the pain management thing, you can say to the doctor, look, I'm really concerned about that pain, I'd like some painkiller for it, or you can do it. Japanese people tend not to do it, because here, sensei, the doctor, sensei they call the doctor, sensei's the boss, right? And whatever sensei says is what you do, and you don't sort of question sensei. That's usually the Japanese attitude towards it. But what I've found is the reality is that you can. So with doctors and dentists and all sorts of people here, I've asked them. Now the best way to do this is to be really gentle about it, and to wait until the timing. Japanese people are all about timing, so wait until sensei's had his say and there's an opening for you to have your chance to have a say, and then say whatever you need to say really gently. So if you'd like some more painkillers, or in one case there, you saw the operation video we had, and the plan for them was to do the operation under just an epidural, which means that you're conscious. And I actually said to him, I don't want to be conscious for that, I want a general anaesthetic, I don't want to be conscious. And his response to that was, we don't normally give general anaesthetics for this, and then he did. And it's quite often the case here, they'll do that, they'll suck through their teeth and go, we don't usually do that. And then often what they will do it. They will do it. So, and they really are good, the initial impression, if you're used to another country and different relationships with doctors, where maybe you're on first name terms or it's more relaxed or something, and then you come here, initially it can feel really impersonal, and it can feel like the doctor's being a bit sterile and distant, but it's just, often it's a cultural difference, and quite often what you'll find, if you just relax and go with it, and just do the right thing that you should be doing, and that's listening to the doctor and being gentle about it, and not sort of being aggressive in what you want, not being too sort of pushy. If you do it gently, you'll find that they will listen to what you're saying and quite often go along with what you want, and then you'll actually find that the healthcare professionals here are usually really compassionate people, and you can develop a rapport. It's possibly different from the rapport you might have with the doctor in your own country, but you can develop a good rapport with your healthcare professionals here as well. So sort of summing up, the insurance, health insurance, the government health insurance and the private health insurance here are very good. The results are really good. And then be patient and sort of have a bit of faith in the system. It can sort of feel a bit, and the way some things are done here are different than what they will be in your country probably, But just sort of the best thing, and this is almost always the case in Japan anyway. I mean, you're in Japan, you're not in your own country, so when you're here, really almost always our advice is to sort of go with it as much as you can, and just go along with what's happening as much as you can, and just be cool about it. Being cool about it's almost always good advice here. If you react badly, if you react strongly or negatively to something here, you're likely to cause more trouble than you'll solve. It's almost never the answer, and they will listen. The healthcare people here will listen if you tell them your feelings, your preferences or your concerns or whatever. So yeah, that would be the advice, would be to sort of relax and go with it a bit and try not to worry too much. You really can trust it. It tends to be pretty good. Not to say, obviously, an informed patient in any country pays attention to what's going on, and if they really don't like what's going on, they say so. And if they don't want something to happen, then they say so, of course. That's just a wise thing to do, as you would in any country. But you really can have faith in the system here. It is pretty good. The skills are pretty good, and the results are great, and it really is. It really is. I mean, the Australian healthcare system is pretty good in lots of ways, but the Japanese system compares to that really well. And I've been to other countries that have terrible healthcare systems where Japan beats them hands down. So it's pretty good. So yeah, that's the advice, is try and relax and go with it a bit, have a bit of faith in it. If you do have something to say, try and pick your timing where it's the right time, everybody's had their say, and you get the opportunity to say what you think or what your concerns are, and don't worry about it too much. You'll find the results will be good. Have a look at that healthcare playlist. It might make you feel better too. You'll see all the different procedures and things we've gone through, only just to make videos for you, of course. And you'll see on there, that might make you feel better as well, because the results have always been positive. The outcomes have always been positive. As far as pain management, I don't want to freak anyone out about that pain management thing. I have had to say things a few times about pain management, and they've always listened. So the end result is dentists and doctors here have always been really great as far as using pain management. It's just that Japanese people in general tend to not use drugs too much. They tend to not like using drugs as much as possible, and that's the doctor's attitude and that's the patient's attitude as well. So they tend to underdo the drugs a bit, you know. And sometimes when you're having procedures, you want the drugs, don't you, you know. But here, if you tell them, look, I'm really worried about the pain management here, or if you've got a high tolerance to painkillers, and tell them that, they generally listen, and they'll up your dose, and they generally will. The other piece of advice that might be worthwhile too is if you're not really happy with the result you get. There was one hospital here that I had treatment in, and it was really, really bad. It was an older doctor, and he had this terrible attitude, and he was so you will get this here sometimes. Some of the doctors here think they're gods, and they'll sit there at their big desk with a nurse on either side, standing formally on either side, and they'll tend to be a bit sort of arrogant, and occasionally you get a doctor like that here. If you get one like that here and you're not happy, and the one I'm talking about actually was pretty rough with his treatment, and it was pretty an unpleasant experience, I never went back to him. I went to another doctor. So, and that's the other thing here, you've got a lot of freedom here. You can usually go to another clinic. If it's a private clinic, you can go to another clinic, and that's covered by the healthcare as well. Or if it's a city hospital, you can often go to another city hospital. There's nothing to stop you doing that here either. So there's a lot of freedom here as far as that's concerned too. So, you know, you can always do that. If you're not happy with the way you're getting treated by a doctor or by a hospital, you can always go to another one. There's no problem with that. If you're only here for a short time too, it's worth pointing out the actual healthcare itself isn't that expensive. You know, that professor guy was $10 or $9 or whatever it was, and that was what was that, 20 or 30% of the cost, which means without health insurance that still would have only been a $60, $70 visit. It's pretty good. It is pretty good. So anyway, there's all that. Hopefully there'll be something in there for somebody that will be useful to them at some time if they spend some time here. So the bottom line, given if we have to put a rating on Japanese healthcare, we'd say good. Don't worry, it's all good here. It's good. You can definitely find the people that look after you well. And just that in closing too, on that English Friendly Japan directory, we are slowly collecting some healthcare professionals. We've got doctors and dentists and mental health professionals, and we're slowly collecting physiotherapists and other people as well, allied health professionals. So we'll keep collecting those people as much as we can. We want as many on there as possible for you. So it's worth looking on there too, because definitely if you can get healthcare professionals that can speak English, it definitely makes it easier for lots of people, doesn't it? So anyway, hopefully someone found that interesting and maybe even a little bit useful. More videos coming soon.